Appa came to me the other day and he was like, there's this boy. And I was like, what do you know about him? He's like, nothing. I was like, great.
Asian, other, Tamil.
Asian, other, Tamil. Asian, other, Tamil.
Asian, other,
Asian, other,
Asian, other,
Asian,
Tamil.
other, Tamil.
Asian, other, Tamil.
Vanakkam. Welcome to the Asian Other Tamil podcast, a podcast that brings our experiences of being Tamil to the table.
So that we can create a community that feels accepted, connected, and empowered.
We are your hosts, Danisha
And Shani. And welcome to... This is really sad. The last episode of the season.
Yeah.
It is just no emotions over here. She's like, yeah, okay. Don't shout at me. You're giving off the evil woman in Monsters Inc. You know the receptionist desk?
Mike Wazowski.
This is our last episode for the season. We were really thinking about the kind of things we'd want to wrap up with. And we thought, being raised as, women in this community, what would we like to put out there? And so the episode today is going to be called The Things That Shaped Us. And that's going to involve, finding resiliency, courage, finding feminism, conversations with our parents, how we navigate them, all the trauma that we've experienced in our lives. We'll unpack a little bit of that today. So as homework for this episode, we sort of took some time to reflect on 4 events that have massively impacted our lives, good and bad. And the episode today will follow that sort of journey. There'll be 8 events that we'll talk more detailedly about. So the first one begins with Danisha.
Oh, yeah. I grew up within the Tamil community you'd call a non-conventional family dynamic. My parents, they got divorced when I was about 4 years old. I had to split time between Amma and Appa, and that was all I really knew of my life. Seeing friends and spending time with friends, particularly in the community, there was always this thread of knowing that I don't have what they have in terms of my parents living together. A huge thing for me as an adult reflecting back on that is recognizing and appreciating that my parents weren't in a happy marriage. They chose to part ways, and as a result, I didn't grow up in a household where my parents were continuously unhappy for me. They sort of come together for the sake of the kids and for any big events in my life. But other than that, we're very sort of siloed, and it works really well. And growing up, when I looked at romantic relationships and marriage, particularly where in Tamil films, we've already touched on the fact that family life is so romanticized. A part of me really wanted it because I hadn't experienced it, or my parents didn't have that, so I wanted that for myself. It gives me as an adult this appreciation for my parents in that they couldn't make it work. And I think in the Tamil community and in a lot of communities,
in the 90s,
breaking a marriage off is just not done. And I remember so many people in the community would speak to me from when I was young till I was in my teens to be like, don't you ever feel like, your parents should be together? And I remember I was about 14 or 15 and I was like, no way. But as I grew older, I started appreciating that, you know what? If a happy marriage is not what you have and it can't work, you have to make the decision that you have to make for the betterment of all of the people involved in that home. I think Amma has definitely received comments from people in the community to be like, how is she going to raise those kids to be, upstanding members of this society? Loads of people have a lot to say about things that don't concern them at all.
And I think we're raised to listen to them. So much of how women are raised in this community is you must listen to what they have to say. No, because of course they're right. And you're like, of course they're right. Yeah, sure.
Or it's like when they give you these like harsh truths. It's உங்களோட நல்லதுக்கு தான் it's like veiled with
Yeah,
this, like,
it'll be like,
there are good intentions here, and it's just like,
it'd be like a really savage comment followed up by, but no, is
Yeah.
no, you're just so manipulative.
I think
Did you ever feel growing up that you were adamant to not get divorced?
yeah, so I think at one point in my life there was very much, I was also, and I'll go into it a little bit later, I was like the ambassador for the patriarchy. Like, look back on and I'm like, wow, like, they got me good.
Yeah.
I would not rule out divorce on the basis that
Yeah.
I have to stay together with my partner for community
Yeah.
or
No.
because of what people would say or what people will think. Yeah, so that's not a thing for me.
Being empowered to be like, if this relationship isn't working for me, I'm gonna walk out of it. Like, you know, educating my parents to be like, that's not me being horrible in your eyes as such, but it's me being like, you gave me a good education so that I can stand on my own 2 feet. So when I need to stand on my own 2 feet, if I don't do that, then it kind of defies the whole purpose of why you even like invested in my education. I should be able to exist by myself. You should be able to exist by yourself. But we both want each other because we add something to each other's life that we wouldn't get if we weren't each other's life.
It's not even as, you know, intense as what Danisha's is, but mine was the discovery of music. My father was diagnosed with diabetes before he even got married, right? I should start off with that because that's how it's an issue in our community, guys. Like, work
Health.
on it. It's like diabetes.
Yeah.
We have to be the generation.
We've got the big three, man.
Yeah.
Diabetes, cholesterol, heart disease.
Yeah,
like
blood pressure. Like, we need to be the generation that actively works to change that. When I was sort of about 10 years old, the diabetes like really started taking over. He had like the retinopathy, which is like the eye problems. He had like the nerve problems. He had the kidney problems, which then eventually led to heart problems. So, and I'm the eldest. I've got a younger sister who's 2 years younger than me. When I was 12, he had his first heart attack. And for a 12-year-old to go through that is a bit intense. I was 12, and then he had another one at 16, and then he had another one at 23, and then he eventually passed away after the 20 when I was 23. So, but we'll get to that. Anyway, so, and the reason I say the discovery of music is so crucial is because I was in my sort of puberty, young adult, teenage phase.
yeah.
I discovered like rock music. A lot of me doesn't talk about that phase of my life. I think also because I was probably quite depressed, in all honesty. I think as a kid, looking back, me and my therapist are working through it, but like I was like a bit of a hermit. I had zero interest in anything. I couldn't talk to anyone about this, and it was one of those things where it was, you know, when you have that thing, it was like headphones on and world off. Like that was me for about a decade.
Were you also like walk in the rain so they don't see your tears vibes?
Oh my god, yeah, I was not okay. Like I was also, you're going through so many changes, you're becoming really aware of your emotions, and that's sort of why the teenage phase is quite turbulent, because you know you're growing and you're understanding things a bit more. And I was like, oh my god. And me and my father, we had quite a wonderful relationship. We were like friends, but we argued a lot because you're like the eldest girl, you're fighting for basically everything all the time. And so music was a real release for me at that time. And I'm grateful because it kind of ended up being the release that I didn't know I needed. And I was, I just argued with my parents, and I was that kid, like we'd have a fight and then I'd get into the back seat and then just like put my headphones in with my iPod. I had like every generation of the iPod.
Have you always been sort of drawn to music, or even like the genres? Like, what was it that drew you to the genres that you were listening to?
I remember this so vividly. So my friend who was into the scene, the rock scene, because back then you'd have MP3 players too, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you had like, you could
my
only put like
God.
20 songs.
Yeah.
So she had Fate by Linkin Park. I'd listened to it like a year before, and I was like, this is so much noise, like sensory overload. Like, I remember judging it like so hard. And then like coming back to it and then being like, oh my god, like, yeah. And I think in a weird way, it did all the screaming that I couldn't do in real life.
Ooh,
for me.
how poetic.
It was like all these like emo teens, like they go for a lot, man. Like, you don't know what their
No,
home lives
yeah.
are like, and I couldn't talk about any of this to my family. I kind of had to just shut up and live my like everyday life so normally without even like saying how I felt. There are days where like when I'm really down, that is the music that I will go to this day, and it will be like music from like 15 years ago.
We sort of touched here and in previous episodes really about how Tamil school was a part of both of our sort of upbringing. I'm Hindu, so Amma and Abba made sure I was going to the temple every Friday without fail. Koil and Tamil school, I think when I was young, I'd say probably before I even started any other cultural extracurriculars, were like the things I looked forward to the most. Like, go to the temple, and then I had like my friends at the temple. I was just running around. So I was not praying, obviously. I was just running around having
It was like a social gathering when you're little. It's like, I see my friends. And
is I'm gonna go there and just
have a good time.
See all my peeps, and it's gonna be great. But I loved being around Tamil people. Every Nayan man has like a guru set in like where we like our like sangam basically. Amma would be like, is there a speech that my daughter can do? Do you know how many? I would padamark it. Like, I would memorize an A4 sheet of Tamil, like, the night before a pusa.
No.
And that's why, like, my short-term memory loop is solid.
Like, my first memories of you guys was singing all of Sivapuranam off by heart.
That's so random.
Yeah, like, just... like
Sivapuranam.
And we were like, everyone who wasn't a part of Sangam, because she went to different Tamil school than I did, because we were not like heavy on the Saivam, we were heavy on the Tamil.
Yeah.
Whereas you guys were all about the religion aspect of it, and there's like a song. You probably know how many lines it is. I don't know. It's so long. It's so long. And these guys had like memorized it when they were like, I want to say like 14, like something crazy like that.
Going to Tamil school, going to the Koil, like albeit going to the Koil was like more of like fun times for me. They were my introduction into like this super rich, vibrant culture and community, 100%, and it just like propelled my like love for being Tamil. I, growing up, would feel more Tamil than I would feel British. Like,
I think I'd agree. I think
going to school,
yeah.
I would have to like turn my Tamil off, and like going back to like when you're talking about iPods and stuff, I would not be able to give my iPod
because it was just Tamil songs.
It's Tamil songs everywhere, and you know, like, or if I like listened to my music like too loud and it was like kuttu, it was like reverberating outside of my like cheapy headphones. Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m, I was a different Dansha. To the evenings where I had like dance class, Sangeetam, Tamil school, Koil, and I was like the other Dansha. That was how I fell in love with our culture.
So the second thing that happened in my life that I am probably
I love this one. I love this. No. I like this section because like I think it's
so random, but
it was
also
so random,
so great.
But I remember it, and like I love how it's sort of like
become.
It's become
because we've allowed it to become.
Yeah,
and
it's taken
audience
form.
Like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, and it's taken its form, and it's sort of like gone through its own like journey. It's in itself, but yeah.
So animals and pets, and I know it sounds like what the hell is she on about, but in the Asian community, pets are just not a thing. So rare that you
got like a dog.
Especially in our parents' like generation. Like, I can't tell you anyone in our parents' generation who've gone and gotten pets. Like, in the 90s growing up, I didn't really know very many people who had like a pet.
It's also like a huge thing because like our parents growing up in Sri Lanka didn't have like, they had like animals for the house.
Yeah.
And like there'll be a nai, but that nai isn't like Anbu Parson.
No. And my family were always quite against animals. And this is ridiculous. So when I was 20s.
I love it. I love this story.
Ridiculous. I've always wanted like an animal, and I thought, let me just start off slow. And then, so when I was 21, my university friends got me a rabbit. My babes. And so I named him Rolo, and my family, bar my dad, kind of like fell in love with him. So we had him for 8.5 years. Yeah. About like everything that came with him.
Model van de Mutte.
That's why I call him a Model van de Mutte. And so many of my friends would come over and be like, I'm just coming to see the rabbit. Like, because like, who comes see a rabbit? Anyway, it's like something you get when you're like 7. That was like the beginning of like my sort of journey with animals. And I've always wanted animals, but for the longest time I was always told like, one, you can't look after them, like unale ilalo. it's a lot of work, you can't do it.
Yeah.
2, like, if they're not clean, they're not this, they're not that. And there was so much taboo that surrounded having animals. And I was like, surely it can't be that deep, right? 5 years later, we got a dog. And the dog sort of was a coercion of me and my husband with my mum, because my dad had passed away. There wasn't really anything holding us back from getting a dog. We were just like, we're just busy, so let's just not get a dog. And then we got a dog. So we had the rabbit and the dog together for a while. And my mum fell in love with the dog. Like,
your mum's relationship with your pup.
It's and then me and my partner, my husband, moved out. And then we got rid of a companion, Pluto. And they had a really good time. So in this process, we got a cat, initially a kitten, and it just teaches you so much. We got a kitten, and the kitten passed away for 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Less than 2 weeks. Yeah. We've just learned a lot. It's also been great to, especially when you've been married, to kind of establish a routine. There's something more than you two all the time. And that's kind of nice to always, sometimes it's not boring.
This is where every auntie who's watching this will be like, and that is why you have children.
Yes.
It's not just you two.
Yeah, it's not just you two. But it's different. Just like as a family, we've really worked towards like debunking this whole like animals are this and animals are that. And it's just changing the narrative of having pets in an Asian household where people are still so scared. Like, there is just so much bad noise that surrounds having a pet in our community. And it's like, as if when you have kids, it doesn't smell like shit anyway.
People in the community are quick to be like, procreate, have a child.
Yeah.
Right? And all the responsibility, right? Like, and at that point in time, as I say, if you were also like to your parents, we're gonna get a pet instead. They'll be like, no, I reckon they'd even be like, nah, you guys can't take care of a pet.
Yeah.
Why do you want me to have a child?
Yeah. For them, I think taking care of a pet is like harder than a child.
I think
which
maybe
makes no sense to me.
I don't know if I'm deeping it, but like as you were talking about it, I think there's a lot of like with your biological child, you're going to do it regardless because it's your biological child and the survival of that child is down to you. With an animal, you maybe, and I think it's quite presumptuous to be like, with an animal, you're not gonna take as much care because it's not a puller.
It also teaches you loss and, and finding resilience in animals where you probably didn't even think you'd ever find resilience ever. And I think learning these lessons are so important in life. And especially when you have children, not that I'm saying you buy animals and they die during the child's life, but it's important that they understand there's so much more out there than just mum and dad. It's understanding that is just a part of life, right? This is good, because we lost our cat and I was devastated. It's a weird lesson we didn't really know we'd ever need to go through.
I think also
we grieved. Yeah. We probably grieved as adults as well.
Yeah, and like as a couple together, like handling those emotions.
Oh my god! Also, it teaches you a lot about each other.
Yeah,
we're like, we got another cat within 2 months. Within 2 months of the first kid, his name was Dobby. We got Nimbus. Nimbus is the love of our lives. All the animals are the love of our lives, to be honest. And I think we're in a place where I'm happy to just keep this animal farm going. I just need a bigger house. I'm ready. Like, it's a problem.
No, I love it.
It's a problem. Yeah.
Do you know why it's great? Because like, it's also like, I come here now and I'm just like, where is he?
Yeah.
I've not seen him for a minute, right?
Yeah.
I'm often like, where is he? I can't see him.
Yeah, and we'd have like rabbits in the study over here. Then we had like Nimbus like rolling around everywhere, and it was really just a wholesome place to be. A lot of the people in our community do want animals.
Mate,
I think they do.
Have you seen like every single like Instagram reel of like the parent who said they didn't want an animal, and then they're like putting cushions under their head, like, pardon.
Yeah.
It's like tutoring them.
It's like my in-laws, so my husband's family are just a no nonsense, no pet. They're obsessed with the cat. They are obsessed. We call Nimbus, like my in-laws are Nimbus's holiday home. Because like he goes there, he has a wonderful time, comes back a little bit plumper. Like, just everyone loves him.
I think as the oldest child, and we moved here when we were very young, so we didn't really have a lot when we came here. So I saw my parents like learning the language, struggling, things like that. So I've always been grateful for what they've done. For that, sometimes I feel like I owe them everything. I've been my dad's personal accountant since I was like 6, that only because I could speak the language. That's a positive way. But in terms of like trauma, when I moved out for uni, I thought, oh my God, is this a really selfish decision? I feared that what if something happens when I'm not at home? I carry that wherever I go. And then there's another thing where I have to like be really well behaved because I have a younger sister. Everything I do impacts her life as well, apparently. If I have to study well so that my sister gets motivated by me and studies well. I never had that. So like, obviously I wasn't looking up to someone. I was looking up to my parents. So sometimes I'm like, that's really unfair. Like, I want to do this. You know, she doesn't have to do something because I'm doing it.
As a true overachiever, I have every degree because I really want to prove myself. So I did my PhD when I was between the ages of 22 to 25, and I did my PhD in Newcastle, so in the northern part of England. And my dad was progressively getting quite ill. Smack bang in the middle of my PhD, he passed away. It's not even about, you know, his passing. It's about what I've learned. And what's wild is that I'm learning every day. And it's a conversation that we need to normalize in our community, and that grief is something that you don't just get over. Grief is constant. When you do have so much feeling and emotion towards something, it's going to take a while to let that go, especially when it's a parent. I don't think you'll ever let it go. What I think it has taught me the most in the last 7 years is validating myself. And that is, I think, what I've struggled with the most, especially as I was like a people pleaser. I did everything to seek his approval.
Yeah.
It's really kind of made me weird, but I've had to empower myself. I'm going to make this decision. If it's wrong, it's wrong. What can I do? I'll learn on the way.
Yeah.
And I remember after my dad died, and I was like, obviously I was like the eldest, and we had to organize a funeral. My sister was 21, I was 23. We had to put together like as two women. We were then left with like, there's no man in the house. And it's similar when you talk about your experience of your divorce with your parents, because instantly for my mum, a lot changed. It was like, how are you going to raise two Ulam Pombalail? How are you gonna make sure they succeed in life? You can't do that. As a single woman, you can't do that. People were suggesting her to move back home. Go back to Yalwanam. You can raise girls there. The patriarchy is my norm, is our norm. Feminism is like everything that's not the norm.
No, yeah,
right?
100%.
So like,
100%.
and then I had to like step up and defend my mum. I was like fighting off her like patriarchy battles. And it was a lot. A lot of the conversation was so patriarchal. How will you do this Amble Lama? And then don't even get me started on not being able to do any like ceremony ritual without being married or without having a husband.
Bonkers.
Like, don't even get me started on that. And so the last 7 years, we had to actively work to empower each other, the three of us in the house. Yeah. Sometimes I find that resilience is great because, you know, you're formed in a highly pressured environment, like, right?
Like
but
a diamond. So much, I think, in our community, there is like, and probably in a lot of other communities, that resilience is like a medal of honor.
Yeah.
It's like the highest achieving like honor in the world to have that resilience, to be like stoic and ironclad and like, yeah, okay, like I suppose a part of it is like, how are you going to be able to deal with, you know, the ebbs and flows of life if you aren't resilient?
And it's crazy. And what tends to happen sometimes in our community, because we're so backwards in managing our emotions, you end up managing other people's emotions. And that happened a lot. There was a lot of, I'm going through something tragic in my life, but I have to stop and look after you because you've made it all about you. And that happens a lot in our community, and especially in like our parents' generation. There's a lot of people, I know you're grieving, like you're close to my father, you were close to them, but I was his daughter. I lived with him every day. Like, you may have seen him running around and you with him, whatever, for this many years. I was 23. I lived every day with him. Don't rob me of my experience, which happens all the time in our community. It's something that we need to work on, because everyone can have their own independent experience with people, and that's okay. It doesn't need to be yours better than mine. So that happened quite a bit. My emotions came about 4.5 months after he died. Yeah. And it came as severe anxiety. That's how it manifested. I had my first panic attack in my life about 4 months after he died. And then I started therapy. And so I've been in and out of therapy since my dad died. So 7 years, really. I've kind of been in and out of it. And it's done me wonders. I had to finish my PhD. And I think And the reason I think PhDs in general are tough, man, are tough because you're constantly failing and you're trying to find new solutions, and it's like a cycle of this failure and solution and failure and solution. And this kind of added to why I became so resilient, because again, I didn't have a choice. And then you've got that voice in the back of your head of, oh, I can't let like my dad's death stop me from doing the PhD. Like, I can't quit now. Like, now they'll definitely be like, oh, she quit because her dad died. Oh, look, the family's going to shit. Oh my God, like, we knew they couldn't do anything without the dad. Like, that was the narrative that was running in my head. And I was like, I was like determined. I was like, I would do everything in my power to finish this.
Were there any moments for you where you were like, I could really do without this?
Yes, all the time.
With your PhD?
Yeah, all the time.
Was there also a little bit, like, I know you've spoken about the people, was there ever anything for you that was like, I need to finish it for Abba?
Yes.
As well?
Yes.
God.
Yeah. You have to defend your 3 years of doing your experiments. So you go for your Viva defense, and went there, passed my Viva, and I came home like straight away. That journey, I think it was a 3-hour journey from Newcastle to London on the train, yeah. I cried almost the entire time. It was like this, so much grief had been like squashed into a box.
Yeah.
And it finally felt like I could breathe.
That's so intense.
I finally felt like I did it. Like,
yeah.
there was like, it was so conflicting. There were situations of like, I did it.
Like achievement.
I've achieved something amazing, but look at what it's cost me. That was difficult. You look back and you're like, I was so resilient, but I didn't have to be. Yeah. My final year, I would come home when I was writing my thesis towards the end. I'd come home like on summer breaks in Newcastle, and I'd just be like, I'd ask my mum and my sister, like, will you still love me if I quit?
Oh.
Or I'd ask them all the time. I'd ask them, I'm like, if I quit, would you still love me? She's like, of course I love you. What a stupid question is this?
Yeah.
And I was like, what? I'd be like, you will? You won't shun me?
It's the conditioning, man.
You won't shun me for not being exceptional all the time. What? I didn't even know that was a possibility.
That was an option.
Yeah.
That's so hard.
It was tough.
So
it was really
hard.
tough.
It was like the primary, like it was like the foundational blocks of how you understood parents' validation. Yeah. As a like toddler or like a young child.
It's like reward system. Yeah.
Like
it's
that,
so bad.
like positive reinforcement for you.
So many parents do that to their kids in the South Asian community.
Yeah.
It's almost the norm.
Yeah.
Like, it's, especially when you're the eldest kid, there is just so much put on you, and you're just like, I can take it.
High
oh, shit.
achiever.
Then you hit like your late 20s, and you're like, I want to be rebellious. I'm not okay with this. And then, to be fair, I just started doing some rebellious things. I mean, not that outlandish, but I did, I got myself some tats. Got my hair short. That was a big thing.
She went wild.
I went, honestly, guys, it's crazy. And ever since then, I've just been unpacking a lot in therapy, and I would strongly advise seeing a therapist. You need to have these conversations with someone professional who can navigate this with you. And every kids, especially in the like Tamil community, your relationship with your parents, every relationship is so different, 100%. Right? And you move on. You do move on, and I know people don't want to talk about it. People kind of want you to just sit in grief your entire life and be mopey and awful about it, but you do move on. And I think it's really tragic that it does, but also it's really lovely that it does move on. Therapy isn't an option. Talk to your friends about it, but you could just be like, I just need you to listen and just like hold my hand, give me a hug, let's go for a walk, like, and just let it out.
We have been segueing really nicely, so I'm about to start talking about how my friendship circles have evolved.
I like this evolution of you. You're like this next phase of Pokemon. What would you call yourself? Oh, that's a really fun question. Damn shot.
No, that'll be backwards. I was going to say Danishanda.
Oh, I like Danishanda. Oh, yeah, Danishanda, yeah.
Anyways.
You could be Danishi, like Togepi. Danishi. Yeah.
Okay,
Danishi sounds nice.
Danishi.
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
It being like the product of patriarchy, I just did not vibe with girls. I was unabashedly like, nah, girls are stress.
It's we've had this conversation. It's so common. It's
Yeah.
so common. Women are
Women
drama.
just, yeah, women are long.
Yeah. And it's crazy because men say this about us guys, and now we start saying about our own kind.
So growing up for me, like when it comes to female friends, I've not had a consistent group of female friends growing up. It's been one friend from childhood who's like consistently been there. So I've always had like quite a bumpy ride when it's come to friends. And like in that course as well, like where I was like lads, I was like trying to get a lot of male validation.
Yeah.
Right? So having female friends, finding female friends and finding myself in that process has been quite monumental for me. It was a little bit was sort of unlearning, should I say, a lot of the toxicity as a result of my conditioning in growing up in this society. There was a lot of, I was very judgmental. No compassion, no empathy. Me and my friend came up to see you in Newcastle. Her and I got into an argument.
Oh yeah.
Bro, we would have our clashes and genuinely just not give a damn about anyone in our presence. I was getting upset that my friend was feeling bad, and my way of
soothing her
was to just shit all over her feelings. Nishani sort of like, we gave her sort of like the Cliff Notes version of like how this conversation has happened. Yeah, and you instantly, it was like the world just ceased to exist for me. It was just like, there was like a thing, and I'd like zoomed in on what you're saying, and you basically just like, I understand that could be really hard.
I was like sadness.
You were sadness.
Oh my God.
You weren't dismissing what I had said, but your delivery was just like complete contrast of what I was doing. And I remember sitting there and I was like, what? My relationship with my friends, I'd be the person to sort of like rationalize a situation and speak logic about it and like completely like devoid of emotions. I'm trying to like undo that and be like, I'm not here to judge. Like, as long as whatever it is that you're going through, you are feeling that truly and authentically, we'll figure it out. Like, it's cool. Yeah. The female friendships I've found in my adult life, in addition to teaching me compassion, is teaching me to uplift my friends. But
again, something that's not done in our community at all.
No.
It's all like angapar in that person has this. Yeah. What do you have?
Yeah.
Which is
where my judgment came from.
Yeah.
Someone makes a decision and it's not what the masses would think is appropriate. You're just
shunned. It's
like, I told you. Didn't we say? Didn't we say? I remember growing up where like parents would often say that, you don't have friends for life. That thing that your friends don't go on your life's journey with you. You get married and then no,
literally. I wonder it's because we're women, and then it's like you're expected to just kind of like let go once you get married.
Yeah,
like,
and like
God.
I've had these conversations where it's just like, she's gonna get married tomorrow,
so she's
like,
not gonna.
You won't be able to. And I think a lot of it was like parents trying to manage expectations. And I think for their generation, it is different. Like, especially if you got married and like you left the country. Imagine like you moved to Australia and I moved to Canada. Like, where are we having that girl time and that, not even girl time, but where are we having that just time to connect with each other and like catch up and be there as like pillars of strength that we 100%. Are to each other. And I think that's something that our generation has do so beautifully.
Our friends with our friends' husbands, like,
yes.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's something that we have done so well to normalize in our generation, and that's my girl, but her husband is also my girl.
And like back in the day,
we are
it would
really
be
cool.
like you would become friends with your husband's friends' wives.
Yeah.
So like the lads got to do that. The men got to have that journey where it's just like this is my boy, meet my boy, your wife and wife can become friends.
Yeah.
And they did do that. As two women in this generation, born and raised in this country, like I feel like I could not, like, forget my friends when I get married. Get out.
Innit?
Are you mad?
Without my friends, I would not be the woman that I am right now without my friends.
Amen. Like, whilst for me, like, finding my female friends in my adult life has taught me a lot of, like, learning compassion and, like, understanding also for myself that you can be empathetic and also be someone who can be rational and logical. And, like, I think that for me was just like, you either were highly emotional and weren't able to, like, see above the water, or you were like me, who didn't allow my emotions to take the better of me, but I could see things for what they were. And it was just like, that's how. And I think, again, that drove the patriarchal.
Yes, because you're like
lads,
a guy.
lads,
You're like
lads.
a guy. The way
Yes.
you think, you're like a guy in that sense.
Yeah.
And
I wasn't allowing my feminine energy or whatever to be. I wasn't allowing myself to feel my emotions.
You've come a long way from where you were about a decade ago. You've come a very long way. It was tough. It was tough there for a while, and it's sad. It's so sad because as like an outside looking in, it's because you're so harsh on yourself.
Yeah,
and therefore you'll be harsh on everybody else because that's the standard you hold yourself to.
100%.
And therefore that's how you hold everybody to. But you need to show yourself some love, man.
Yeah, but I think that probably is an area I still need work on
because
because
not even just you, like most people.
I now will hold the compassion for my friends. I won't hold for me. So like crumbling is like
weak, inadequate.
Yeah,
it's like the people who tired. My therapist said to me, when you advocate, so if I'm going through something really bad and you advocate for me and against something that's happening to me, one, it's not your problem to advocate for me, especially if I'm not doing it myself. You advocate for other people's problems because you are not being heard yourself.
Yeah.
And I do that. I'm like Street Fighter out here.
K.O.
I'm like, anyone's battles, I'll take them. Like, especially if it's like feminism related. Like any woman, I'm the first person to stand up for her.
Yeah.
And then I have to be like, it's not my shit.
I think in finding my clan of like women and like finding my feminism in all of that as well, like to think about some of the things that I've said or the sort of my approach perspectives in life from when I was younger, I don't recognize. I don't even think I'd be in a place where I could talk to like 14-year-old Anusha.
Yeah, she'd be so resistant to that conversation. She'd be like, shut up, man.
Yeah. Like I wish I had romanticized
my
my friendships over romanticizing relationships, because if I had gone back to 14-year-old Namsha and be like, you're gonna marry the love of your life, it's all gonna be brilliant, she'd be freaking like kicking her heels and like if I'm like, you're gonna find the best group of friends, she'll be like, I don't need friends, I've got myself. And I'd just be like, oh, my heart breaks for you, honey, because you're gonna go through it, but you're gonna come out of it with just this support system.
It has been like talking to a brick wall. I'm too scared to bring up feminism to Tamil people purely because it ends up in arguments. Or I end up walking away like practically in tears. People would want to say it when it comes to their mums or someone they knew, but as soon as it becomes like just a generic thing, it's like they don't want to actually acknowledge that it exists. You should speak out about it, or at least acknowledge that it exists if you don't want to speak out about it.
So that takes us to our last two segments, which are kind of going to be kind of one collective thing. Mine is sort of dating in the Tamil community and finding feminism after marriage. I wasn't someone who was like, I have to marry Tamil medicine. That was never someone that was never, Which is really nice, I think. I was
because,
never like
our
that.
community are very like inner.
Yes. So that was like, while so much was put on me, yes, it would have been nice to have married a Tamil guy. I am currently married to a Tamil guy. It was never something that I aspired to.
Or that wasn't sort of like that. You weren't limiting yourself.
Never. That was never a thing. But it was also one of those things. Appa's passed away. If I bring home someone who wasn't Tamil, it's gonna look even worse than my mum. I was 25. I've gone through so much life experience already. I was working. I was living my best independent life. I'd also at this point signed off men. I was going through like some stuff and I was like, life is so hard. And then I met this guy I met this guy and I told my mum we were dating within a month of us going out. Yeah,
That's
because
very early.
and it was very early, but also because I was so sick and tired of being that pombolo who has to like sneak out the house. Like I was just exhausted. I was like, why am I lying? I'm running out of excuses. Sometimes I just want to jump out for an hour. Like nothing's ever that deep. How many times am I going to go and buy milk? Really important for us to get to know each other's families before we got married and not sort of wait till the wedding day and then everyone kind of becomes accustomed to one another then. We kind of really wanted everyone to have their individual relationships with everyone, kind of build that foundation. So that was great. So we moved in together before we got married, which is, I would say, quite rebellious for someone like me.
I loved that you guys did that. I remember you're like, so we bought a house. I'm like, great.
Yeah, because, and also like, I had to market it like it was the most practical thing to do to my mum, because I was working in Cambridge, and London to Cambridge, I commuted for a whole bloody year. It was long, man. And I was like, why would I get a housemate when I could get my partner to move in with me? And I pitched it. My mum was like, and then she's like, yeah, okay. And my mum loves my husband, probably more than me. So she was like, he's an Alabadian. So, okay, Paula. I moved in and then got married the year after. There was feminism, and then there was a post-Kalyanam feminism that were two completely separate identities. Before you're married, you're still not taken quite seriously, I would say. Even though you're attending in the community, like weddings and functions and stuff together, as a couple, you're not taken quite seriously.
So rare you get couples who do move in the community, who move with the community when they are not like out of wedlock, right? Who are like, we're gonna go to weddings together.
So it's really difficult because our parents, I'm 30, you know, we're in our 30s. Our parents sometimes still see us as kids.
Yes.
And that is a constant dialogue you're trying to fight your entire life. And I think when me and my husband moved in together before we got married, I think it was probably the first time a lot of people saw us as adults. As a people pleaser, I had to sit with being the bad guy for years. It was a lot. And it's crazy because in my husband's perspective, like I was the one for him. And in my perspective, like he was one for me. We're going to build a beautiful life here. We were so confident. And I think that's why we could do it, because we were so confident in our relationship. And we'd had all the necessary conversations. Like, I'd rather it be awkward and weird, but you just let me know. So every tough conversation we've tried our best to have. So we were very confident that in Narandalam, we know that we will figure it out.
Yeah.
Why would you not empower your kids to do that, to find the right person? Because on a stage, I'm saying to someone who's lost a parent, your parents aren't going to be here your entire life. Like that focus group.
Yeah.
This one person is going to be your rock.
Yeah.
Until one of you dies, why would you want that person to be the person who just isn't right for you?
Yeah.
Like as a parent, you should that should be the only thing. Is this person fit enough to look after my child?
Yeah.
That's it. That should be the only conversation.
That is literally, that is like the beginning and the end.
Yeah. If they are not,
question.
That's it.
Anything else doesn't even need to be brought to the table.
No. And it was great. And then we got married and so many things changed. Like if I was to go out, there'd be comments of who's going to give your husband food. Or if he went out, it'd be like, you can't leave her in the house alone overnight. Like in the Singapore, like
that's a new one.
Things like that. It was, you know, if we have hosting something, you know, he actually sometimes wouldn't host with me. We are hosting and he wouldn't host with me. He'd just go and like chill with the uncles or go and eat before me, which happened a lot. Like he would just be, and I'd be like slaving away in the kitchen or like doing something or like hosting, making sure everybody else's bellies are full, and he'd just be like, they're chilling. And I remember after a housewarming, I sat him down, man. It's like, no, like, how would you feel if you done that and I was just sat with a bunch of uncles just like having a few drinks and just eating?
It's no fault of their own. It's what they know. It's what they've seen growing up. It's what's comfortable to them. It's easier to just fall into line.
These conversations, like sometimes people still don't have them, and like what it is you become each other's person, whatever that is. And you have to sort it out yourselves. If at this stage where you don't have like any other responsibilities, when it's just you two, if you can't already work towards, you know, solving this, it's only going to get more complicated when kids are potentially involved. It's really sad because I still see couples who just don't do some of the work. And I think I'm like such an advocate for doing the work. Do the work, man. Like, sit there, have the conversation, ask your husband, where can I be a better partner for you? Ask your wife, where have I been really shit? I would say before you even get married. Totally aware that not everybody has that, you know, the opportunity or privilege to do that. But you know, and also if you feel like something is right, just go for it. The validation will come later. You don't even need the validation, because obviously we went through this entire journey. Looking back at it, we wouldn't change a thing.
ரிஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் நடந்த பிறகு நாங்கள் இடக்கிற 2-3 தரம் வெளியில் போயிருக்கிறோம். டேட்டிங் பிறகு மண்டே டு ஃப்ரைடே அவருக்கு வேலை போவார். பிறகு சாட்டர்டே அவர் கிரிக்கெட் விளையாட போயிடுவார். அப்போ நான் வந்து அவரோட போயிடுவேன் கிரிக்கெட்டுக்கெல்லாம். எங்களுக்கு வந்து அந்த எங்களுக்கு நல்ல கம்யூனிகேஷன் அந்த 2 பேருக்கும் இடையில. ஹீ இஸ் வெரி ஸ்ட்ரைட் ஃபார்வர்ட். சரியா? அவர் என்னத்தையும் உடனே சொல்லி போடுவார். ஆனால் என்ன பிள்ளையாண்டாலும் சொல்லுவார், பிள்ளை எல்லாட்டையும் சொல்லுவார். ஆனால் சொல்லல நல்லா இருந்தால் அவன் சொல்ல மாட்டார். அது அந்த அந்த மென்டாலிட்டி. ஒரு ஆளோட காய்ச்சி பேசிக்க உங்களுக்கு தெரியும் என்ன இந்த ஆளோட நான் தொடர்ந்து கதைக்கலாமா இன்னும் செய்யலாமா. தொடக்கத்திலேயும் கூட அதட்டி வைக்க தொடங்கினா உங்களுக்கு ஒரு பயம் வந்துடும். கல்யாணம் முடிச்சா பிறகு வர பிரச்சனைகள் வார இது வந்து வெளியாக்கலானா பிரச்சனை வாரது. எங்களுக்குள்ள பிரச்சனை இல்லாட்டி வெளியில் இருந்து வாராக்கலாலாம் பிரச்சனை. அதுக்கு நீங்கள் இடம் கொடுக்காம இருந்தால் சரி.
It's tough though in our community because they'll do the most to like really make you doubt yourself, because all you do is doubt yourself.
They really do. I think there's a lot of, I think for them, for like talking for our parents' generation, I think for them it's like they've also like moved to a country that's foreign, trying to uphold a culture in a country where, you know, the West is far more liberal and open-minded, and it's just like we can't lose our
kalacharam.
Yeah, we can't lose the core values of our culture that are steeped in the patriarchy. In the piece of them making you doubt yourself, in their mind it's like, I'm just looking out for you. And on the flip of that, I think with our parents it's like, and let us figure it out.
And let us fail. Let us learn on our own. And I said this to you a couple of weeks ago. I was like, so much of being married is failing all the time. If our parents are constantly trying to cushion the blow for us, when are we ever going to learn how to just deal on our own?
Since like the age of 25, it's just been a topic, and you try to put it up for a couple of years. Because like if you give any other excuse like career or whatever, they're just like, no, you got a good job, like what's wrong with you? And so I constantly gave the excuse of, let me just like try buy a house because I want to do that by myself. So now I've done that, and it's just like literally every immediate family meeting or extended family meeting, the constant topic is basan and kalyanam kadapora. It's like, why? Everything's set in your life, just go do it.
And that brings us to our final segment, which is sort of my journey as a single woman in her 30s.
Jeez, all that income.
Oh my God, yeah. Living my best life. And also when I go to public events, like within the community, it's like Target, locked and loaded. We're like, the amount of weddings that we're attending of like people who are now younger than me, I think is like impacting my parents as it naturally would. So there's like navigating those conversations a lot where, you know, Amma, what's going on? I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, you tell me. And I'm like, nothing. They're like, I'm so candid with them. I'm like, nothing's going on. And they're like, Appa kalyanam. I was like, when the time is right. I was someone who I wanted like to be married and have a relationship, and like that was like my priority in life when I was younger. I was only going to truly find happiness and meaning in my life when I got married. And part of my journey has been having to unlearn that. Really sit with myself and say, why do I want to get married? And at one point in my life, it was, I want to get married because then my life will have meaning and value. And like relearning that for myself to be like, I do have value. And like emancipating myself from that way of thinking that, you know, I can't completely, you know, blame society for it or blame Tamil movies for it, because like I helped enable that in my life. I gave it the pedestal that it had in my life. That was all me. Today, I still want a relationship and a partnership and a marriage, But it now no longer is because I'm gonna find happiness or it's gonna give my life meaning. It's because after doing all that unpacking, it's still something that I want. And like in doing that unpacking, I've learned to start prioritizing me. I'd always have thought myself to be quite extroverted because I'd always be around people. And when you're around people, you have to be a certain type of way around people, or they're going to ask questions, or they're going to be like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And in finding myself and like finding my identity and like living with myself, it's allowed me to have conversations when I'm approached by uncles and aunties, and they're like, "Amma, what's going on?" And I'm like, "Auntie, I'm 30 years old. Do you think I've not spoken to a single boy? Like, is this what you're thinking is happening here?"
Oh my god, that's so funny.
No,
imagine like just be like, I'm blending.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? I'm like, do you think I don't? Do you think like I'm not open to it? Or and they, bless them, they think I'm being resistant, and I'm like, I'm not being resistant. What I am being is maybe I know what I want. So I think it's also having conversations with aunties, particularly to say, you know, if you were given the opportunities that we were given, being raised in this country, being given the autonomy to, you know, find a job,
find ourselves,
pursue higher education, find yourself, find a job, earn a living, would you have gotten married in like at 22? And like, and when I say that to them, I don't say it to them like, you didn't get it, so you don't know. I sort of say it to them like, I know if you were given those opportunities, you'd be in the same boat as me, man.
100%.
And they're like, some of them who are able to understand that are like, yeah, Ma, you're not wrong. Like, it's wild because I think they're taking me seriously.
Yeah, no, they are.
And
they
I'm like,
whoa.
Yeah. As I've gotten older, understanding that finding a partner is all about, you know, like the initial butterflies and the fun times and the nerves and like, it's all of that. But it's all the work. Let's get to the work. I'm so much, and it might be like my project manager side, it might be my critical parent, whatever. It might be that I'm just like, let's get the hard stuff done first, and we can then have like all the fun we need to. Because I think so much of like how we approach like dating is like, it needs to be like fun and jovial.
And you know what? That's not an accurate representation of life at all.
I was so that person. I was just like, if it's not this, if you're not like whisking me away and sweeping me off my feet, it's not. It's
I think
not
all of
right.
them are guilty of that.
Yeah,
to be fair.
we all are. And I think now I'm more so like, talk to me about your childhood trauma. Let's unpack it.
That's a bit intense. And I think I've always said that, like, if someone isn't willing, you know, not even like marriage, just friendship, parent, if no one is willing to sit in that discomfort and then have these conversations, it's not going to be a meaningful relationship. End of.
And like, I'm not about to just enter into a partnership with someone who I'm not able to align ourselves on like fundamentals. So yeah, when I've had those conversations, I'm very straightforward with them. I'm like, this is what I want in a partnership. And I want that understanding. And I'm not going to settle for any less. And that's fine.
You're only 30 years into your life. You're probably going to be alive for at least another 60 years. Let's say you make it to 90, 100, let's say.
Wow.
Yeah?
Thanks.
Imagine like 30 years of your life trying to find the right person to then live a minimum of 50, 60 years with this one person. You take your time. I think you'll be all right. Be
unapologetic. Like, if you want to be married and you're waiting for the right thing, then say that. And just, and like, I completely understand where it's sometimes you are so just annoyed by like the constant like squabbling, like people being down your back. You're just like, why do I even need to explain myself to you? But I think it helps you going through it to also be like, you know what? I'm doing it for me. But I'd say standing in that truth is really is more powerful than you think. And that brings us to the end of this episode.
No, this is really emotional.
Yeah. This is our finale episode. Nish touched on it like in our intro. And it's been a wonderful journey, I think, for both of us.
I actually might cry. It's been a hard work, guys.
We've sort of shared bits and bobs of it like on social media, like in sort of like the run up to like us going live with the podcast. But I think this episode has been like a really beautiful way for us to end this season, because it's basically been like an amalgamation of all the conversations that you and I have had over the time that basically led us to be like, we should have a podcast, and also it's for this very reason.
Yeah, and also, you know, we've had focus groups, we've had loads of tears in the focus, we've had laughs, and that in itself has been its own like amazingly wholesome journey. But it was important that you guys got to see that side of us too. It's only fair. You know, we're always behind the camera, often having these conversations, and it's weird to put ourselves in front of the camera and talk about sort of our own personal journeys and that vulnerability that we really enjoyed sharing with you guys. So please show us some compassion. All we want to do as a culture and like a sort of platform is to create a place where we don't feel shame and we don't feel guilt for talking about things that we should have been allowed to talk about most of our lives. So many cultural taboos. When we sat down sort of coming up to a year ago to have these conversations with adults who were like our parents' age, we did not know how it was going to go down. We had no idea if people would, you know, be willing to have these conversations. And what's happened so beautifully is everyone has come forward, you know, with so much feedback, and not even just feedback, but just sort of be like, I went through this, and I'm so glad that we're talking about this now, because there's no platform that really highlights, spotlights these kind of things, and that's really what we strive to be. And I think our content is so intentional, you know, and we want people to be seen, and really that visibility is like what drives us.
We didn't know how it would take, and you know, your guys' engagement with us to like tuning in for like every episode that drops and resharing our stuff, like it's meant more to us than you really know. And we can only hope that we continue to put content out there that you guys appreciate and can relate to, because that was another point of this. You know, let's create a space where Tamil people feel seen and heard.
And also a big thanks to people who kind of work behind the scenes, like kind of showing us the ropes.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Showing us the ropes, telling us where to go, and every single person who volunteered to be a part of our season 1 focus group. We are so grateful, because you guys just believed in our goal, and we're like, yeah, we'll come on, sure.
Yeah.
Like you had no idea what the end product was going to be. So a big thank you to our season 1 focus group people.
The OGs.
The OGs. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much
for
being
guys.
here, for supporting us, for coming back every time. We see you, we hear you. We can't wait to bring you season 2 next year.
It's gonna be bigger,
We've
better.
got loads of
So
things
much.
in the pipeline, so like this is not the last you're gonna see or hear from us.
Not at all.
This has been
It's too emotional.
This has been the Asian Other Tamil podcast. We are your hosts, Danisha,
And Nishani.
and we'll see you soon, my loves. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.